Greetings, my fellow Finbows Southern Thinkers. This is LL3's newest podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful swampy mangroves of South Florida. And today's date, Sunday, April 16th, 2017. Yeah, you hear music in the background. I am at CJ's Java Lounge, located at 400 Southwest 1st Avenue, or New River Drive, along the beautiful New Rivers of Fort Lauderdale, southwest section of the Andrews Avenue Bridge. Yes, it is Easter Sunday. For many of you out there that celebrate it, and boldly recommend study the origins of how Easter came about. It's not being sacrilegious by any means, saying that the resurrection of Jesus Christ and so forth. Not censoring it at all. But it's good to know how this happened, the roots, the history, and its motives. No form of symbolic mind control. We've all been swindled one way or the other in our lives. Now with technology, you can go further, see things a lot broader, make sure the information has a great amount of merit. I learned this about the origins of Easter from my mother, and so it was considered a pagan holiday, and shared it with the Junior Encyclopedia Britannica. I don't know, they have websites on it now, but it's really good to know. Then you go further into the research. So I could thank her for planting seeds of certain holidays, how it started. Sometimes we drive each other crazy. You know what? She does it too, don't worry. It's human, and I love her to death, don't get me wrong. I just have to make that statement. So, always honor your family members best you can. We'll have our fault. We'll have our potholes, make our errors. But have to learn from them as well and become more wiser. But on the contrary, we're seeing hopefully everyone's having a great day. True peace on earth. True peace, security, and spiritual prosperity. By pursuing it, we could have to defy terrorism, corruption, and the New World Order. I used that statement a while back in a more different perspective, different point of view, but same meaning. On September 14, 2001, with 9/11. I put that in my signature on September 14th of that year. Beautiful sailboat come by, but it's cloudy, windy, so it's warm, but not scorching. Summer's not here yet. So I'm going to really be addressing a couple of things, which I have to get off my chest. Learning more of what's going on with that actually free speech rally. I thought the pro-Trump rally, but the free speech rally in Berkeley and other places on April 15th, yesterday. And to all those folks, jabronis out there, think they're all mine because they're in some little Mickey Mouse club. Take your insecure attributes somewhere else. When you do activism, you don't scream and yell on top of our lungs and use weapons and sucker punch people in the throats and throw enmities at innocent bystanders. That's for the weak and the pathetic. Doesn't matter what side you're on, but if you're gonna censor people, you just love the climax of a Mao Tse-tung and Fidel Castro, Benito Mussolini, Benjamin Netanyahu, or Barack Obama, etc. Difference is, I defy all forms of tyranny. I've been doing it for a long time, and even members, comrades of that organization, as one of them, know me for a long time. So it's not putting the blame game on one particular group. It's just, I judge individuals by their actions. Some of these movements are well-wise individuals that want to do things correctly. However, when you have plants, infiltrators, and jabronis, or prima donnas that could never get out of a paper bag, that's what leads to issues that one day can affect someone you care about or yourselves. That's from yesterday what happened at some of the free speech rallies I've been checking out, hearing reports, not taking sides, but looking at the bigger picture. The plutocratic way is nothing more but gangs of color. Gangs of colors. Colors gangs. My gang is better than yours. Ha 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 ha. Get a grip. Individuals like myself always pay homage to men like Thomas Paine, for example. His philosophy inspire people to break from Britain. That was a strike of a pen. May not be the greatest soldier, but he was the information warrior for his time. So anyone can do it. Everyone out there, doesn't matter what your political perspectives are or spectrums. We can make a difference by planting the seeds, inspire people to think, share a common interest. That is true unification. Not hired to be at these rallies, but be inspired. That's my ranting. Because if you support division, you will be conquered. I know I'm digressing, and forgive me on that. So, speaking about imperialism, this came from, actually I got this from an email, Paul Craig Roberts, and it was originally from John W. Whitehead from Rutherford Institute. And it's from the website Information Clearinghouse. News you won't find on CNN or Fox News. That's an entire title. Beware the Dogs of War. Is the American Empire on the verge of collapse? Great quote from James Madison says, of all enemies to public liberty, war is perhaps the most to be dreaded because it comprises and develops the germ of every offer. War is the parent of armies. From these proceed debts and taxes, known instruments for bringing the many under the domination of the few. No nation could preserve its freedom in the midst of continual warfare. That's by James Madison once again. Alright, so we'll continue on here. As it says here, this is actually waging endless wars abroad, and if Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and now Syria isn't making America or the rest of the world any safer, it's certainly not making America great again. It is undeniably digging the U.S. deeper into debt. In fact, it is a wonder the economy hasn't collapsed yet. Indeed, even if we are to put an end of all government military meddling and bring all the troops home today, it will take decades to pay down the price of these wars and get the government's creditors off our backs. Even then, government spending would be slashed dramatically and taxes raised. You do the math. The government is $19 trillion in debt, War spending has ratcheted up the nation's debt. The debt has now exceeded a staggering $19 trillion and has grown at an alarming rate of $35 million an hour and $2 billion every 24 hours. Yet while defense contractors are getting richer than their wildest dreams, we're in the hock to foreign nations such as Japan and China, our two largest foreign holders, at $1.13 trillion and $1.12 trillion respectively. The Pentagon's annual budget consumes almost 100% of individual income tax revenue. If there is any absolute maximum by which the federal government seems to operate, is that the American taxpayer always gets ripped off, especially when it comes to paying the tab for America's attempts to police the globe, having been co-opted by greedy defense contractors, corrupt politicians, and incompetent government officials. Government's expanding military empire is bleeding the country dry at a rate of more than $57 million per hour. Hopefully you warmongering demonides out there that never got your hands dirty are listening to this. Government has spent $4.8 trillion on war abroad since 9/11, with $7.9 trillion in interest. That's a tax burden of more than $16,000 per American. Almost a quarter of the debt was incurred as a result of the wars in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Pakistan, and Syria. For the past 16 years, these wars have been paid for almost entirely by borrowing money from foreign nations and the U.S. Treasury. As the Atlantic points out, we're fighting terrorism with a credit card. According to the Watson Institute for Public Affairs at Brown University, interest payments on what we've already borrowed for these failed wars could total over $7.9 trillion by 2053. The government lost more than $160 billion to waste and fraud by the military and defense contractors. With paid contractors often outnumbered enlisted combat troops, the American war effort, dubbed as the Coalition of the Willing, has quickly evolved into the Coalition of the Billing, with American taxpayers forced to cough up billions of dollars for cash bribes, luxury bases, a highway to nowhere, faulty equipment, salaries for so-called ghost soldiers, and overpriced anything and everything associated with the war effort, including a $640 toilet seat and a $7,600 coffee pot. And there is links on here too, folks. You can read this yourself. All right. Taxpayers are being forced to pay $1.4 billion per hour to provide U.S. weapons to countries that can't afford them. As Mother Jones reports, the Pentagon Foreign Military Finance Program opens the way for the U.S. government to pay for weapons for other countries only to promote world peace, of course, using your tax dollars, which they are then recycled into the hands of the military-industrial complex corporations. The U.S. government spends more wars and military occupations abroad every year than all 50 states combined spend on health, education, welfare, and safety. In fact, the U.S. spends more on its military than the 8th highest-ranking nations, with big defense budgets combined. And reach of America's military empire includes close to 800 bases, as in many as 160 countries operate at a cost of more than $156 billion annually. An investigative journalist, David Vine, reports even the U.S. military resorts and recreation areas in places like the Bavarian Alps and Seoul, South Korea, are bases of a kind. Worldwide, the military runs more than 170 golf courses. How sweet it is. Now, Donald Trump wants to increase military spending by $54 billion, promising a historic increase in defense spending to rebuild the depleted military of the United States. Trump has made it clear what his priorities lie, and it's not with the American taxpayer, as the nation reports, on a planet where Americans account for 4.34% of the population. U.S. military spending accounts for 37% of the total of the global total. And the cost of waging war in Syria with or without congressional approval and the burden on taxpayers soars more than $11.5 million a day. Ironically, while presidential candidate Donald Trump was vehemently opposed to the U.S. to use force in Syria, as well as harboring Syrian refugees within the U.S., he had no problem retaliating against Syrian President Bashar al-Assad on behalf of the Syrian children killed in the chemical attack. The cost of launching 59 Tomahawk missile strike against Syria is an estimate that the missiles alone cost $60 million. Mind you, this is the same man while campaigning for president who warned that fighting Syria would signal the start of World War III against the united Syria, Russia, and Iran. Already, oil prices have started to climb as investors anticipated an extended conflict. Hopefully you Trump worshippers out there that climax like the ones that devour for Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton are listening. Because one thing for sure, hero worship is the road to nowhere. And I will proceed. Clearly, war has become a huge money-making venture, and the U.S. government with a vast military empire is the one of its best buyers and sellers. Yet, what most Americans brainwash into believing that patriotism means supporting the war machine fail to recognize is that these ongoing wars have little to do with keeping the country safe and everything to do with enriching the military-industrial complex at taxpayers' expense. So how does it feel being extorted, my friends, in the United States? How does it feel? Hope you're really gratified at this. The rationale may keep changing for why American military forces in Afghanistan, Iraq, Pakistan, and now Syria. However, the ones that remains constant is that those who run the government, including the current president, are feeding the appetite of the military-industrial complex and fattening the bank accounts of its investors. Case in point, President Trump plans to beef up military spending while slashing funding for the environment, civil rights, protections, the arts, minority-owned businesses, public broadcasting, which some of them not really too crazy about, Amtrak, rural airports, and interstates. Like some I'm not too crazy about, but I can deal with that more than what's going on right now. In other words, in order to fund this burgeoning military empire that policies the globe, the U.S. government is prepared to bankrupt the nation, jeopardize our servicemen and women, increase the chances of terrorism and blowback domestically, and push the nation that much closer to eventual collapse. Clearly, our national priorities are in desperate need of an overhaul. As Los Angeles Times reporter Steve Lopez rightly asked, why throw money at defense when everything is falling down around us? Do we need to spend more money on our military, about $600 billion this year, than the next 7 countries combined? Do we need 1.4 billion active military personnel and 850,000 reserves when the enemy at the moment, ISIS, numbers in the low tens of thousands? If so, it seems there's something radically wrong with our strategy. Should 55% of the federal government's discretionary spending go to the military and only 3% to transportation when the tolls in American lives is far greater from failing infrastructure than from terrorism? Does California need nearly as many active military bases, 31 according to the militarybases.com, as its UC and state university campuses? And does the state need more active duty military personnel, 168,000, according to Governing Magazine, than public elementary school teachers? Obviously, there are much better uses for your taxpayers' funds and trillions of dollars being wasted on war. The following are just a few ways those hard-earned dollars could be used. $270 billion to repair U.S. public schools, and twice that much to modernize them. $120 billion to fix the nation's crumbling infrastructure. With 32% of the nation's major roadways in poor or mediocre condition, it's estimated that improving the nation's roads and bridges will require $120 billion a year through 2020, although it will take many trillions to fix the country's web of roads, bridges, railways, subways, and bus stations. $251 million for safety improvements and construction of Amtrak. $690 million to care for America's 70,000 aging veterans. $11 billion wasted or lost in Iraq in just 1 year could have paid 220,000 teachers' salaries. The yearly cost of stationing just one soldier in Iraq could have fed 60 American families. $30 billion per year to end starvation and hunger around the world. $11 billion per year to provide the world, including our failing cities, with clean water. The use of $10 billion spent every year to provide arms, equipment, training, and advice internationally to more than 180 countries are still paying down the overwhelming $19 trillion national debt. This figure doesn't include the hundreds of billions spent each year on maintaining the U.S. military presence around the globe. As long as we, the people, continue to allow the government to wage its costly, meaningless, endless wars abroad, the American homeland will continue to suffer. Our roads will crumble, our bridges will fail, our schools will fall into disrepair. Our drinking water will become undrinkable, our communities will destabilize, and crime will rise. Here's the kicker, though. If the American economy collapses, and with the last vestiges of our constitutional republic, it will be the government and its trillion-dollar war budgets that are to blame. Of course, the government had already anticipated this breakdown. That's why the government has transformed America into a war zone, turned the nation to a surveillance state, and labeled we the people as enemy combatants. For years now, the government has worked with the military to prepare for widespread civil unrest brought about by the economic collapse, loss of functioning political and legal order, purposeful domestic resistance and insurgency, pervasive public health emergencies, and catastrophic natural and human disasters. And hope for you folks out there who are at these rallies, free speech rallies, for or against free speech, starting fights, bickering with one another, you hopefully folks better be paying damn good attention. Having spent more than half a century exporting war to foreign lands, profiting from war, and creating a national economy seemingly dependent on the spoils of war, the war hawks long ago turned their profit-driven appetites on us, bringing home the spoils of war. The military tanks, grenade launchers, Kevlar helmets, assault rifles, gas masks, ammunition, battering rams, night vision binoculars, etc., and handing them over to local police, thereby turning America into a battlefield. Hope you political bobbleheads out there are checking this show as well. This is how the police state wins and we the people lose. Eventually, however, as I make it clear in my book, Battlefield in America, The War on the American People, all military empires fail. At the height of its power, even the mighty Roman Empire could not stare down a collapsing economy and a burgeoning military. Prolonged periods of war and false economic prosperity largely led to its demise. Historian Chalmers Johnson predicts the fate of previous domestic empires suggested that such a conflict is unsustainable and will be resolved in one of two ways. Rome attempted to keep its empire and lost its democracy. Britain chose to remain democratic and in the process let go its empire. Intentionally or not, the people of the United States already are well embarked upon course of non-democratic empire. He got a good book out there called Blowback as well. Check it out. This is an unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex that President Eisenhower warned us 50 years ago not to let endanger our liberties or democratic processes. Eisenhower, who served as Supreme Commander of the Allied Forces of Europe during World War II, was alarmed by the rise of the profit-driven war machine that emerged the following war. On that, in order to perpetuate itself, would keep raging war. We failed to heed his warning. Yet Eisenhower recognized the consequence of allowing military-industrial complex to wage war, exhaust our resources, and dictate our national priorities are beyond grave. Every gun that is made, every warship launched, every rocket fire signifies, in the final sense, a theft from those who hunger and are not fed to those who are cold and are not clothed. This world in arms is not spending money alone. It is spending the sweat of its laborers, the genius of its scientists, the hopes of its children. The cost of one modern heavy bomber is this: a modern brick school in more than 30 cities. It is 2 electric power plants, each serving a town of 60,000 population. It is 2 fine, fully equipped hospitals. It has some 50 miles of concrete highway. We pay for a single fighter with 500,000 bushels of wheat. We pay for a single destroyer with new homes that could have housed more than 8,000 people. This, I repeat, is the best way of life to be found on the road the world has been taking. This is not a way of life at all, in any true sense. Under the cloud of threatening war, it is humanity hanging from a cross of iron. Wake up, America. There's not much time left before we reach the 0 hour. And he is correct. Many folks out there have been forewarning us a long time. And if you hear my past episodes, I inform people that the war on terror is a conflagration of its people, whether it's foreign or domestic. Non-enemy combatants, to be exact. This is completely unacceptable. And I'm sick and tired of you bend-over Bobs, Uncle Toms, and Aunt Jemima sympathizers who still want to worship their so-called heroes in Washington, D.C. Their so-called king, their Lord and Savior. And people that know me on this on my podcast well enough, I go after everyone equally. Doesn't matter what party you're in. Your party isn't the chosen one by God or rather some force of nature. Why is that? I made those statements because your views are very baseless. Has no merit. You buy the garbage over and over again. And you make yourself feel real proud. I will sell my soul for freedom to security. And I feel like I'm a free person. I am proud of my country. Ha 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 ha. Something to really think. Let that sink in, my friends. Even folks out there, even on Facebook, are still climaxing or masturbating their war gods, their heroes. Like I always say, I say yes to a constitutional republic and no to an empire. I've been pretty damn persistent at it for a very long time. You folks got to make their own decisions. And all these so-called politicians want to go to war and you support it, you go out and fight. Not your kids, you. And all those idiots out there that when President Trump started doing those Tomahawk missiles, such as Charles Schumer, Marco Rubio, and what's that dingbat's name? Nancy Pelosi and others, and Lindsey Graham, have them go on the front line, and even Insane McCain. He's not a war hero. He was a victim for the prisoners of war. Call him a war hero. It's pretty sacrilegious, but he's a member of the Council of Foreign Relations. Another bend over Bob and proud. Okay, so this is why I get insulted. People, like I said, people love being a trap. Hi, I'm a habitual entrapper. I'm going to get up and hoop in the hoop, hype in the hoopla. So, enough said. I have digressed and apologized. And I'm going to add, I did before, I did last week, but I think I should put it out again. By NewsBuzz, a Citizen Report, a distillation of the yearly spending spree for March 2017, which they spent over $34 billion on 296 individual contracts. And you see the names: Lockheed, Martin, Northrop Grumman, AT&T, United Technologies, Textron, Critical Solutions, Diplomatic Language Services, DynCorp. Oh, yeah, DynCorp. Okay, and Orbital ATK, etc. So I'm definitely going to add that on there as well. Okay, so don't be shy. Check it out. So I'm going to add that too. I'm going to add that. And I just decided to do one more here on imperialism. And actually, it came from I think it's Anti-Media originally, but it's our activist post. And it says here, the last country liberated from an evil dictator is now openly trading slaves. This is by Casey Welder. It is widely known that the U.S.-led NATO intervention to topple Libya's Muammar Gaddafi in 2011 resulted in a power vacuum that has allowed terror groups like ISIS to gain a foothold in the country. Despite the destructive consequences of the 2011 invasion, the West is currently taking a similar trajectory with regard to Syria, just as the Obama administration exfiltrated Gaddafi in 2011, highlighting with his human rights abuses and insisting he must be removed from power to protect the Libyan people. The Trump administration is now pointing out to the repressive policies of Bashar al-Assad in Syria and warning his regime will soon come to an end, all in the name of protecting Syrian civilians. Kinda, sort of. It's the only way. Assumptuous, I would say, right? Alright. But as the U.S. and its allies fail to produce legal grounds for their recent airstrike, let alone provide concrete evidence to back up their claims, Assad was responsible for a deadly chemical attack last week. More hazards of invading foreign countries and removing their heads of state are emerging. This week, new findings reveal another unintended consequences of humanitarian intervention, the growth of the human slave trade. The Guardian reports that while violence, extortion, and slave labor have been a reality for people trafficked through Libya in the past, the slave trade has recently expanded. Today, people are selling all their human beings out in the open. The latest report of slave markets for migrants can be added to a long list of outrages in Libya, said Mohammed Abdikar, head of operations and emergencies for the International Office of Migration, an intergovernmental organization that promotes humane and orderly migration for all of the benefit of all, according to his website. The situation is dire. The more IOM engages inside Libya, the more we learn that it is a vale of tears for all too many migrants. North African country is commonly used as a point of exit for refugees fleeing other parts of the continent, but since Gaddafi was overthrown in 2011, the vast, sparsely populated country has slid into violent chaos, and migrants, little cash, and usually no papers are particularly vulnerable, the Guardian explains. One survivor from Senegal said he was passing through Libya from Nigeria with a group of other migrants attempting to flee their home countries. They paid a smuggler to transport them via bus to the coast, where they would risk taking a boat to Europe. But rather than take them to the coast, the smuggler took them into a dusty lot of Sabha, Libya, according to Livia Manate, an IOM officer who interviewed survivors. The driver suddenly said middlemen had not passed on his fees and put his passengers up for sale. Several other migrants confirmed the story, independently describing kinds of slave markets as well as kinds of private prisons all over in Libya. She said, adding IOM Italy had confirmed similar stories from migrants landing in southern Italy. The Senegalese survivor said he was taken to a makeshift prison, which the Guardian's notes are common in Libya. Those held inside are forced to work without pay or on meager rations, and their captors regularly called families at home demanding a ransom. His captor asked for 300,000 West francs, about 380 pounds. So you could say about 700, about $600 US dollars. Then sold him to a larger jail where the demand doubled without explanation. When migrants were held too long without having a ransom paid for them, they were taken away and killed. Some wasted away on meager rations and in unsanitary conditions, dying of hunger and disease, but overall numbers never fell, the Guardian reported. If the number of migrants goes down because of death or someone is ransomed, the kidnappers just go to the market and buy one, Manante said. Giuseppe Liberated, IOM Nigeria's chief of mission, confirmed these disturbing reports. It is very clear to see themselves as being treated as slaves, he said. He arranged for the repatriation of 1,500 migrants just in the first 3 months of this year and is concerned more stories and incidents will emerge as more migrants return from Libya. And conditions are worsening in Libya, so I think we can also expect more in the coming months, he added. As the U.S. government continues to entertain regime change in Syria as a viable solution to many cries in that country, it is becoming ever more evident that ousting dictators, however detestable that may be, is not effective. Toppling Saddam Hussein not only to the death of civilians and radicalization within the population, but also the rise of ISIS. As Libya was once a beacon of stability in the region, continues to evolve in the fallout from Western humanitarian intervention, and as human beings are dragged into merging slave trades while rapes and kidnappings plague the population, it is increasingly obvious that further war will only create even further suffering in unforeseen ways. Well. And all those people who's angry at Trump and wanted Hillary in there, you just contradict yourselves again. That's right. Because I remember that saying in the video, we came, we saw, he died, and she just laughed about it. And you want that Jezebelian scum queen in office? You ought to be ashamed of yourselves as well. I love criticizing both these individuals, Trump and Clinton, because their actions are right now pathetic, unacceptable when it comes to foreign policies. I don't want to go overboard, but based on this, what I've addressed, I condemn it with a passion. Bring our troops home. Let's stop being a damn vampire. Let's become a constitutional republic once and for all, and anyone that's involved in these war crimes need to be indicted. Good men and women who serve are getting screwed by these bastards. And these stupid, filthy politicians we have aren't that tough. They talk big, but they're a bunch of cowards. And I can say that in good faith. All right, my friends, that is all. I'd like to thank everyone for listening to the show. Plus, feel free and download this. Download and share this throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or you want to me something that's interesting you may want to check out, whatever you do, please address your correspondences with decorum. You can hit me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Tumblr, YouTube, Freedoms Network, Scene.life, Minds.com. In addition, you can email me at LokiLuck3, which is Look at the number 3 at gmail.com. That's all together. Or, if you like to be encrypted, LokiLuck03, all together, the numbers 03, at gmail.com. All right, my friends. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that the demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading the love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.